Hi guys, welcome back to Next Goal Wins, episode 2. Now, in our introduction episode, I set out what we were going to try and achieve in this series, and there's a few things I probably should have looked up first before I did that. The first of those things is really bloody important, and that is that for some reason on this database, all of the World Cup qualifying regions are set up just fine. So if we go into Africa here, you can see CAF World Cup qualifiers, Asia, AFC World Cup qualifiers, Europe obviously UEFA, North America, CONCACAF, South America, CONMEBOL, and Oceania. It does have OFC World Cup qualifiers. However, if you click on it, you find that it only features New Zealand, the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and Fiji. Now, there is nothing before this, so I don't know how we're supposed to get into it. And I think that the person who made this database has not actually built the preliminary World Cup qualifying stages featuring teams such as American Samoa, which is going to cause us a problem, because that means we have no way of getting into the World Cup, even if we make them the best team in the world. Now, I don't know if this is done based on ranking in the world. So maybe if we were to get ourselves above Fiji in rank, maybe that would grant us a position in the next World Cup. So New Zealand, as you can see, are 73rd in the world. Solomon Islands are 149th in the world. Vanuatu are 174th in the world. And Fiji are 180th in the world. Now, what I want to see is if there is another country from this region that is higher than 180th in the world. Because if that is the case, then maybe you replace them if you are higher ranked than them. So here's 180th, here's Fiji, Oceanic, Samoa, see, 176th now, but were they when those tournaments took place? It's hard to really say. The Vanuatu are there. Anyone else higher than that? You got Tahiti and the Solomon Islands up here. Tahiti, it's hard to say. I don't know if that's going to be the case. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't want to stop the series based purely on that fact. I just have to bear that in mind in future series, because I do want to do one like this on FIFA 15. However, when a database that has all the countries released is in it, I will make sure that I check these facts before I pick a country, and if in doubt, pick one that I know is going to be in it, such as an African country, possibly a North American country, because there are quite a few of those with equally appalling rankings. As you can see, countries like Anguilla here of North America are the lowest ranked team in the world, apart from the teams with non-applicable ranks for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why they're non-applicable, because they have played games. So we've played Tuvalu, we got a draw with Tuvalu, which we'll find out. So I don't really know what that's about, but that's something we need to talk about. And so the objectives for the international team, which is basically going to be to do as well as we can in the OFC Nations Cup, which we do get to compete in, the Pacific Island Games, which we do again get to compete in, and I guess there's OFC Olympic qualifiers, so we could potentially get to the Olympics. I know for a fact that we are going to get to compete in those, so there's a potential there, although there's all kinds of weird rules with the Olympic qualifiers, and I'm not sure they work that well on Football Manager. When I was doing another save a few months ago, I had just a normal save with a normal database. I really struggled to even get my team to get picked for the Olympic qualifiers. It was very confusing. As for our objective now for Pago Youth, the objective is going to be to try and obviously win the league and cup in Samoa, American Samoa, which you wouldn't think would be too difficult, although we come to talk about what's happened this season and you might change your mind about that one. But the main sort of thing we can do outside of here is the O-League, which is this, which is essentially the OFC Champions League, which is, the Oceanic equivalent of the Champions League. Now, it works in two stages. There's a preliminary group, which features the smaller nations. As you can see, this was our representative, which is FC SKBC, which is the South Korean Baptist Church. Wonderful team name. And we enter in this round, and then the winner of that group goes into the main group stages, featuring teams from the bigger nations, such as, New Zealand, mostly New Zealand. As you can see, Auckland City have kind of dominated this. But there are other countries involved. There's Amicali, who are from Vanuatu, AS Dragon from Tahiti. So those are what we're going to try and do, is get ourselves into this and maybe have some success here. And I'm hoping that this can get us some money, which we can then use to build up our youth department to try and improve American Samoa. It is going to be a long slog, which is why I've decided to do these updates once a year. I was going to do once every 6 months, but as you can see from our fixture list, which I'm about to show you, the season starts on the 18th of August and finishes on the 7th of December. It's a very short season. There's only 14 league games, plus a maximum of 4 cup games. So there's not a lot of games that even need to be played. So it would be silly for me to do these updates as quick as that. So the Champions League is very, very strange. So, like, although, as you can see here, 4th, we haven't won the league, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The winner of the league goes into the Champions League, but they won't actually get to start competing in that Champions League until October 2014, where they do their preliminary group. And they won't even get to compete, if they were somehow to get through there, compete in the other group until April, May sort of time, 2015. So it's quite a long way in the future. And as you can see, this football league is very, very volatile. Now then, we're going to take a look at the fixtures. Obviously, we had a few friendlies. The problem with this league is as follows. They are all amateur teams, which means they have amateur contracts. The problem with amateur contracts is that any team can basically come and steal any of my players at any time. And because everyone's reputation is relatively similar, players were jumping all over the place. I had a player go to and from my team like 7 times before I actually managed to secure his services as the transfer window shut. There is no controlling it. So it's very, very difficult to actually build a team. And because most of the players have been generated at the start of this database, there are a couple of real players in it, as you'll find out later, and as I talked about in the first episode, the team's strengths are pretty much even at the start of the game, which means that Pago Youth are by no means going to dominate the league in the first season. We do have a slightly higher reputation, which will help in the long run, but at first, our team was just as bad as anyone else's, basically. So I had a lot of work to do, and frankly, I just didn't have the time to get it done, as you'll see from the way we started the season. Losing to our own B team at home, 4-3 on the opening day. Now, one thing I would say is that as much as I try to get people's names right in these sort of things, and pride myself on being able to pronounce some ridiculous names, not ridiculous, obviously, but hard to pronounce names, this is really going to be a bit of a struggle. Some of them are okay, because a lot of them are phonetic, but there are some that just have so many vowels that I really will struggle. But in this game, I'm going to go with surnames. We got 2 goals from Molipola and 1 from Veao. That is just 4 vowels in a row. That is just V with a sound after it. But I like it. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough for us to win the game. I'm not going to go into every single game and start looking at the stats, because it could take a long time, and I don't want these episodes to be too long and boring, because I do want to try and put them out every few days to go alongside my other series. Our next game, we were away at South Korean Baptist Church, who of course won the league the previous year. And we got pretty much battered in that one as well. Richie Veao, again for us, scoring our only goal. The problem is, because they are an amateur team, there's very few, you can't basically sign any sort of coaches to improve the training. They were taking an age to learn the tactic. Like, it is December 31st now, 2013, so the season is over, and the tactic is basically good as new. Look how much of the tactic they've been able to learn this time. We are learning a couple of tactics, but even so, it is ridiculous. Look, that's from the entire year. The entire year. It just takes forever. So it's going to take a couple of years before they're even confident with the tactic, and hopefully I can try and keep a few of these players. I have done some signings, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Next up, we were at home to the Black Roses and suffered another defeat. 3 defeats on the bounce to start off with the most famous team in the country and the team most expected to win the league. So I was worried that I might even get the sack, but as you can see, I'm still in the job after the season's finished, so you know I didn't get the sack, despite my expectation to win both the league and cup this season. I'm guessing the reason I didn't get the sack was probably down to the fact that they're just so laid back. Any success is welcome, but hey, I want to live here. This place is amazing. I might put some pictures of this place on the end of this video, just so you can see how beautiful American Samoa actually is. So look out for that. Our next game was away at Utale. Utule, I think is how it's pronounced, on television as well. So they do have televised games here, I think. I'm not entirely sure that they do in real life, but we'll have to see. And once again, we failed to score, but we did get our first point of the season, and that was huge because we were in the relegation zone at this point, as I'll show you on the season stages, past positions graph in a bit. Next, we were at home to Pago Youth, who were bottom of the league at this point, and thank God they were, because Chinfu Lautoa managed to score a hat-trick for us, and I'm pretty certain he plays fullback, so I don't know how he managed to do that, but good for him. And Soa Ulata managed to get a goal for us as well. I might not even try pronouncing these names. It's really, really difficult. I don't want to screw them up, especially, but, you know, don't want to insult someone who actually can pronounce these names, because these are almost certainly as normal as anything. Although we do need to talk about Kangan, who is a Korean but does play in this league, and he's very close to being naturalised, so I might actually be able to get him in the national team soon, because he certainly isn't going to get a South Korea cap anytime soon. Our next game was away at Tafuna Jets, who were doing well that season. They were top of the league at this point. We did score no goal in that game, but Veo, Lautoa, and Atoa Leaveo managed to get us the goals in that game as well. So suddenly 7 points, back in business. Then we went to Lionheart, which is a brilliant name for a team, and nicked ourselves a 3-3 draw with 2 goals from Salapu and 1 from Veo. Another Veo. There's quite a few names repeated because I'm guessing the database doesn't have that many names from this area, so there are quite a few people with the same name, which can get a little bit confusing, especially when you're looking to sign players. Then we beat Atuu Broncos in the cup, which was expected as they are a second division side. The second division is actually in this database, which is pretty impressive. Then we did the arbitrary loss to our B team again, who are actually having a belting season, so it's hardly surprising. At this point they were anyway. This league is incredibly volatile again, as I said, and you will see. We managed to then come back and get revenge on SKBC by beating them 4-1, just as they did to us earlier in the season. Then, just as things were starting to go well for us at this point, I was really starting to feel a bit more confident. We'd got more points, we were sitting in mid-table, and I figured maybe we could get a title shot. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to happen, as we then lost away at Black Roses. The Black Roses are one of the better sides in this league, although they were having a bit of a poor season at the time. They did still come up with the goods and beat us. We then got ourselves knocked out of the President's Cup by a lower division side, and that one did not please me, especially 3-0. That was a disgraceful result, and it's a shame because we really did need the cup, because prize money is actually quite good. It's like 10 grand for the winner, which for an amateur team is brilliant. Next game was an impressive 7-3 win against Utule. Fatu got himself 4 goals, and Tupuola managed to get himself a hat-trick as well. So an excellent, excellent performance. And a sign of things to come, and as you can see, we were really starting to get to grips with the tactic at this point, or certainly more so than maybe the other sides. We then went away and beat Pago Youth again, and this was the result that relegated them, I think. We then, of course, moved on to Tafuna Jets and beat them for the second time this season. They still won the league, but we beat them twice, which is good. It's so signs of the future. And then, of course, we finished off with a defeat at home to Lionheart, which basically lost us any shot we had at winning the league title. Let's just have a little look at the league table for this season. As you can see, Black Roses finished very, very close to Tafuna Jets, who did manage to win the league in the end. Pago Youth came 16th, and Utule, got 16 points and were relegated. Utule finished in 7th, which is a relegation playoff with the second place team in the second division, which I believe they won. I'm fairly certain they won it. Let's just have a little look. See, I don't know why this is set back here. SKBC Black Roses. Pago. Yeah, the relegation playoff. Utule beat the team that knocked us out of the cup 5-1. So there was no real big deal there. They were staying in the league. Our youth team actually ended up finishing 6th, which is a little bit of a surprise considering at times they rode as high as 3rd or 4th, which is kind of where to expect them to be. And as you can see, we sort of came up from the bottom. We were still sitting in 7th place and in the relegation battle until 4 games from the end, and that's when we really shot up. Tafuna Jets kind of were there the whole time this season. They were bottom the entire year. SKBC dropped off towards the end, and the Black Roses made a late gasp to get 2nd spot. Now, I'm just going to show you the stats for the team this year. It's hard because we really have struggled. We couldn't get anyone. I didn't even understand this at first because people were just nicking our players. What I have been able to do, though, is pick up a few players on transfers. The transfer deadline is 31st of December for some reason, not the 1st of January to start the window. So that's good. In fact, I can show you those in a second. And it's strange because you have to be really careful when signing players at this level, because if I just sort these by ability, we've got players like this guy, Sosaya Fegay. He is apparently, don't know quite how. Right, here we go. A 5-star centre defender, but if we wanted him to be a ball-playing defender, suddenly it drops off to 0, or basically 1 star, which is not great. If you look at Richie Veo, he's a limited defender again. But if we look at the coach report here, look, this is more important here. Limited defender, 5 stars. Central defender, I mean, it's ridiculous. So I'd be signing a player thinking, right, yeah, I want to play him as a central defender, 5-star defender, centre. Beautiful. Trying to put him in the team, oops. So it is important because there's such a fine line at this level with the actual attributes of these players, because they are so poor. They have a couple of standout ones. So his natural fitness is good, and he's very, very determined. But unfortunately, he is wank in pretty much every other respect in the team, especially technically. His technical attributes are appalling. Tackling is... Ugh. For this level, he's okay, but he is only 17, so he can improve. But my point is, just be very careful when signing players on these sort of databases. Now, we're going to have a look at the stats for the team for this season. Let's just go league stats, because that's all really matters. Most appearances, Sinapati managed to get 14, which is the most, and he played every league game. Most goals for us, as you can see, like nobody really was a standout goal scorer for us this year because of the sheer amount of players we've had to cycle through. Injuries are quite prevalent in this league as well. Jinfu Lao Toa is our top goal scorer because he scored all 4 of those goals in one game, as far as I can remember. No. He scored 3 in one game and then 1 in another. Ferretti Fatu, 1 appearance, 4 goals. Brilliant. Lovely stuff. Best average rating overall is probably Sinapati because of these players having played very few games between them. It was a struggle. I'll be honest, it was a struggle. So I'm hoping that with the signings we've made, next season might be a little bit easier. We're just going to have a little look at the transfer history. That is not the button I meant to press, transfer history. We obviously brought in those... There, it's not showing it. That's interesting. That is surprising. Interesting. Okay, well, I'll have to show you that in the next episode, which will be at the end of 2014. Hopefully we can have a better season. I have got big plans. I've signed players that will fit a system. I have a new formation, which I'm going to be trying out, which I think is very important because I've been looking at stuff, and this one seems to be a bit more effective. It's very similar, but the players' positions and the instructions are a little bit different, and I'm hoping that that, plus with some signings, could make the difference for us. In terms of taking this to the next level. Hopefully we can do the double next year. I really hope we can, because I'm not sure how patient the ball will actually be. Plus, I'm desperate to get into the Champions League, start getting some money to start improving the club. So I will see you guys in the next episode. If you like what you've seen, hit the like button. If you like it even more than that, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, goodbye.